Instead of telling you the things that I do in my homeschool, I'm actually going to tell you the things that I don't do in my homeschool. Hey friends, I'm Jess from the blog siloandsage.com, and here we talk about all things homeschool, homestead, and handmade. And today I'm going to talk about 5 things that I don't do in my homeschool. Now, if you are new to my channel, hi, and if you're not, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. But if you are new, you may not know. Now, I used to be an elementary teacher, and now I'm a homeschooling mom of 5, from high school down to kindergarten. So I have been doing a lot of different things in the education world. I have taught in a classroom. I have taught 5th grade and 4th grade and kindergarten and preschool. And I have educated all of my kids so far. I have done a lot of things, and I've changed how I do a lot of things. And now there are some things that I don't do at all. Now, some of these things I used to do, and I just don't anymore. And so I'm going to tell you about it because you might kind of need a permission slip to not do some of these things. So the first thing that I actually get asked a lot is, what kind of schedule do you follow in your homeschool day? Here's my secret. I don't follow a schedule. I don't like schedules. Now, I'm not really type A. In fact, I'm like type B or C or D, like very unscheduled. I don't really like to follow a schedule. I kind of don't like people that tell me what to do. So I just am not a schedule person. Now, I am a rhythm and routine person. I do think that having rhythms and routines with your kids is super important, especially when they are young and you're establishing those rhythms and routines. That's really important. Now, I've been homeschooling for a long time. My kids have had the same or similar rhythms and routines over the years, so I'm not really in that establishing place anymore. Our rhythms and routines are fairly established, so my kids know what to expect. They know what to do. Things change over time as different seasons go in and out. We kind of change our rhythm and routine, but we don't follow a schedule. I don't find it necessary, and I like to have flexibility. I like to have flexibility that when my kids say, hey, we want to learn about this, I'll say, all right, let's do it. Let's learn about that thing you're really excited about, rather than following my schedule and then getting annoyed that I'm not following my schedule. So when it comes to what we're doing in our homeschool, I also don't have a very strict schedule because I just haven't found it to be necessary. I have like a guide or an idea of where we're going or what we're going to cover, but I don't like to stick to a very strict schedule because, to be honest, it just annoys me if I get thrown off the schedule. So it works better for me to not have one at all. Now, the second thing that I don't do is I don't do the same thing every day. I'm not worried about covering every single subject in every single day. I'm not worried about doing the same things every day. Like, if we are talking about science one day, I'm okay with not talking about science another day. We don't need to cover every single subject every single day. It's not essential for us. There are some things that I do cover most days, like math and reading and Bible. These are the things that our family wants to cover every single day. But I'm not really worried about our days looking identical. So if one day we get started at 9 o'clock in the morning, which, to be honest, does not really happen very often here with teens and tweens, we're not early risers, but maybe one day we'll get started at 10, and the next day we might do things in the afternoon instead. For us, that's a rhythm that works really well, to just kind of go with the flow. You might be a more scheduled person, and you may like to have the same exact routine or the same exact rhythm every day, or you might have kids that really thrive in that. Now, once we get started in our day, we do have a routine and a rhythm that our kids are used to. So once we get going, they know what to expect. They know what we're going to do. But it doesn't really matter to us if it starts at 10 or if it starts at 2. And I know that if we don't cover science today, we can just cover it tomorrow. Now, the third thing that I don't do in our homeschool is I don't do a lot of individual lessons. So that means that I don't have a special curriculum for each of my kids for each subject. We do what we like to call family style learning. So we do a lot of unit studies, literature-based unit studies. I go over this in detail in my course, Homeschool the Non-School Way, but this works for us really well because I have 5 kids and they are from kindergarten to high school age. If I did individual lessons for all subjects for all of my kids, I would probably lose my mind. So I don't do individual lessons. We do a lot of things together, and then they just learn on their level while we are all learning together as a group. Now, does my high schooler do some of his individual lessons independently? Yes, absolutely. And some of my older kids will do their own reading, and they'll do some work independently, their own individual studies that go beyond what we do as a group during our family style lessons. And I play like games and activities and hands-on things that my younger kids are doing. Everybody has their own things that they do, but I don't do individual lessons, except for math. My kids each have their own individual math curriculum, and they're not even all the same curriculum company because I want them to work in the way that works best for them. But as a whole, we are doing a lot of things together as a family because that's the way it works for us. Now, speaking of curriculum, here's the fourth thing that I don't do in our homeschool. I don't actually use a lot of curriculum. Did I say that? Am I going to get in trouble? Are you going to eat me alive? I don't know. But I don't use a lot of curriculum. I do use some. I just told you that I use math curriculum. I do use some curriculum as like a guide. We have a history curriculum that we're kind of using loosely as a guide to kind of like guide the direction that we're going and to give us some ideas for some books. It has a great book list. I can link it below. Beautiful Feet Books. That's the history curriculum that we're using this year. But I'm not using it step by step. I'm not following it to the letter. I'm kind of using it as a guide in our family style learning. I'm not worried about asking all of the discussion questions that are in the curriculum because we're having our own conversation. My kids are asking questions. I'm coming up with questions as I read the material, and it works better for us to not have a lot of curriculum. So what do we do instead of use curriculum? We use books. We can find a book about literally any topic and we can use it for a curriculum. Now, I get that this can feel a little intimidating, but it really isn't. It can be as simple as reading a book to your kids and having a conversation about it and saying, what do you think? Does this spark any ideas? Draw a picture about what you learned in this book that we read together. I go into detail about how to make your own unit studies and how to do this family style learning in homeschool the non-school way, but you don't need to have a formal unit study to learn about something. You don't need to have a curriculum to teach every subject. In fact, most subjects you don't need to have a curriculum for, and I probably will go to the mat on that one. Now, the fifth thing that I don't do in our homeschool is I don't teach. Now, before you call the authorities on me and think that I'm just letting my kids run wild, I'm going to clarify for a minute that I don't teach, but I consider myself a guide. I'm not standing in front of my kids and lecturing them and telling them, this is what you're going to learn from this today, kids. No, we're learning together as a family. So instead of me being the teacher and me saying, here's what we're learning about, instead I'm saying, here, kids, here's this information that we're all going to learn about together. Here's this topic. Here's this book. We're going to read about it. We're going to learn something together. And you tell me, what did you learn about? What is important to remember from this information? What's important from this book? That's what I want my kids to be able to do. I want them to be able to read something and to come up with their own information, not what some teacher told them that they have to learn. I want them to be part of the learning process. I want them to drive the learning more than I drive the learning. I want it to be coming from an internal motivation instead of me being the driver of their learning. So those are the 5 things that I don't do in my homeschool that maybe some people do, and that's okay, because homeschool shouldn't look the same. My homeschool shouldn't look the same as yours, same as hers, same as theirs. It should be different because it's not about recreating school at home. It's not about having the same identical education as other kids. It is about giving our kids a unique way to learn in the way that is best for them, in a way that makes them thrive and our family thrive, and not a cookie cutter education that they can find in the school system, but a unique education that works for them and that works for us as a family. Now, if this idea of saying no to some of these things in your homeschool is either a little bit overwhelming and you're like, whoa, I don't know what to do with all this. This is a lot. I thought my homeschool had to look like this. I thought I had to use a curriculum. I thought I had to be a teacher. I don't even know. Or if it's just intriguing, you're like, how do I do that? How do I say no to some of these things that I thought I had to say yes to? I encourage you to go to the link in my description and to download my free PDF guide called Homeschool Without School. And that's going to help you get started homeschooling the non-school way. All right, I will see you next time. In the meantime, keep cultivating your home. Bye.